Once again, thank you for joining us. And yeah, for you guys to be here, it simply means that you take mental health very seriously. I believe that most of our audience here are students, if not all. You can agree with me that students, we go through a lot. Well, firstly, as childs, can end up in toxic relationships too. And our coping capacity is different too. We're coming from different backgrounds too. We are just fighting different battles. And in the middle of everything, we still have to find time to study. We as ASABA UJ Chapter take mental health very seriously. And we believe that it plays a significant role towards increasing your academic success. So we hope at the end of the session, you'll feel comfortable enough to take control of your mental health so that you can excel in your academics. Before I introduce you guys to our first guest speaker, I'd like us to just have a short question and answer session. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can comment if you prefer to comment. My question is, what does mental health mean to you? What is mental health? Please feel free to unmute your mic and share with us. You can comment.
I'll start. So I think mental health, to me, mental health means fitness of the mind, like being able to handle, or not to handle, like being able to deal with negative thoughts, like not letting negative thoughts or...
Vanishaa?
Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, but I was losing you.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I think mental health means being able to deal with negative thoughts, or negative things, like things that make you sad or put you in a state that makes you sad, or think things that are not normal. Like I think it means being able to handle that, and like just being able to handle negative things better. That's what it means to me.
Thank you, Mama Shari. I find myself as being able to handle negative thoughts. Does anyone want to add? As Chirwa says, to me, good mental health is being able to get on with my day-to-day activities, completing tasks successfully. Thank you, Chira. I think from my side, I would say mental health would be just me accepting the things that can change and I literally cannot do. Nenjabulo says it means prioritizing my well-being over everything else. It's a good one, Jabulo. Without any waste of time, I'll introduce you guys to our first guest speaker. Her name is Vanishaa Gordhan. She is Operations Manager at South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Vanishaa, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. And we did test it. It works. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
100%. Okay. So I'm Vanishaa Gordhan from the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and I am the current operations manager. I'm also the university liaison. So and I'm going to explain a little bit more about who SADAG is and what it is and what we stand for. But we are an NGO that manages a lot of helplines. We deal with mental health, we deal with advocacy, and also helping destigmatize mental health. Say, what is mental health in South Africa? So 1 in 3 South Africans will or do suffer from. These numbers are pre-COVID. So please know that it's escalated. And I'm going to go into that a little bit later. Only 25% of people with mental illness access or will access treatment at any time in their lives, leaving the 75% of people who are living with a mental health issue not accessing help or a treatment because either they don't know that they need the help or they don't have access to it. They don't know how to access it. They don't know they need to see a psychologist. They don't know they need to see their GP. They don't know they need to see a psychiatrist. They have no idea of how to navigate how they're feeling and how to navigate the treatment and help that they need. Every 24 hours in South Africa, there are 23 completed suicides and over 460 attempts. Those are big numbers. Those are a lot of numbers, a lot of people, a lot of lives. Males are 4 times more likely to die by suicide compared to females. The most at-risk age for groups is adolescents, because in this new world, it's even more because they have to adapt. 9.5% of all teen deaths are due to suicide, and the youngest suicide recorded in South Africa is of a young 6-year-old. And that is something to say, like, do they understand what it is? Is that something that they wanted to do? Do they understand the finality of it? But mostly it is because they wanted to end the pain that they're feeling, or they wanted to end, experiencing the pain or anguish of whatever was happening to them. It might have been a trauma they've sustained. It might have been a life event. It might have been relationships within their families. It can be anything. So who is SADAG? South African Depression and Anxiety was founded in 1994. And it was initially founded where our founder, Zane, actually struggled to get herself diagnosed. And only after 10 years of struggling with her mental health, with struggling with panic attacks, struggling with not being able to manage in her work life, in her daily routine, only after 10 years did she get a diagnosis. And that made her think. It was like, okay, so if I have all the resources and it still took me 10 years to get a diagnosis, or for someone to understand that this is my treatment plan, how many more people are struggling in this manner? And so what she decided was she was going to open up a support group, and she put a little ad in the paper. And I know, okay, nowadays we don't really use the paper. We all read the news on our phones, but she put a little ad in the paper. And one week she had 10 people arrive, the next week she had 25 people arrive, and it grew from there. So that shows that a little bit of awareness or a little bit of information can reap such big rewards where, other people can say, I'm also struggling like this. And that's something that I think 20 plus years ago, she started that, until now. We are the only national suicide crisis helpline within South Africa. We offer telephonic counseling and referrals nationwide. We have over 22 dedicated helplines that run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We still, within this COVID space, have continually run our 150 support groups. So a lot of them are either running online or they have WhatsApp groups, but the support groups itself has been sustained. We have brochures, pamphlets, we have videos, we have so many articles. If you go onto our website, you'll find toolkits, you'll find information, short videos, long webinars, all highlighting mental health. We do school outreach. So we do school talks, we do parents talks, we do teacher talks, informing them of mental health, informing them of suicide prevention, informing them of, how to manage your mental health, how to manage how you're feeling. We have rural community projects because we have the Ivory Park counseling container as well as the Dipslet counseling container, which actually services that entire area. And we provide free counseling there. We also do corporate talks, wellness days, and we do a lot of university interventions. Okay, so I just want to separate two things. I know that my topic was mainly on SADAG and also on a little bit of burnout. So I wanted to just put this forward. And all of us feel stressed. For some of us, stress is good because it lets us be more productive. Some of us have to plan things so that we don't become stressed before an exam or before a test or something like that. So each of us are so different and so unique. So stress is when you put in too much effort, right? You're putting in the effort, but you're getting a reward. Burnout is when it's hard to even do that. It's hard to even, make that effort of I'm making a list to, just say you have an entire textbook to study, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to make a list. I have 20 days and I have a whole textbook and there's 12 chapters inside. And when you actually have the energy to be able to plan that out, because you're feeling stressed about it, but that's positive stress. Remember, stress can be good and stress can be bad. Burnout is when you can't even take that time to make that timetable for yourself. Burnout is when you cannot manage the workload. You cannot manage your daily routines. You're not sticking to it. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating well. You're not interacting with others. So it's important that if you feel like that you reach out to someone to get the help, because you might be in that space where it's just become too much, right? Stress, you feel emotions more strongly. Burnout is when you feel blunted, when you're not feeling much. You feel, and I'm going to use this very strange word, but you feel blah. I don't know if anybody can attest to that feeling, but you feel like you're just, that monotone. You feel indifferent in that manner, right? When you're stressed, you feel hyperactive and sometimes a bit anxious. Burnout is when you feel drained and helpless, when you cannot make that list, when you cannot open your textbook to read, when you cannot make that effort to call a loved one. Right? Stress is when you have less energy. So you can have less energy when you're stressed, when you feel overly stressed, right? But burnout is when you lack that motivation. You don't have that vuma to actually want to continue. You feel very disjointed. You isolate yourself. You're not feeling, motivated to do anything. Right? Stress, it takes a physical toll. That is very true. It's very important that you will know. And I can only imagine that. So you guys are all actuarial science students. And to me, that means super brainy, right? Very clever, very intelligent, have lots of maths brains. And I can only imagine that you guys are very much aware. You're very aware of how you're feeling, how you're managing your stress, those extreme amounts of, I can only imagine the maths that you do, right? And it's you know how you feel, you know how you manage. And I think it's so important that if you know these things, is to set the example and reach out. If you notice these things in one of your friends, they're not checking in with you like they used to, they're not asking you the questions that they used to ask, random questions, random comments. You can notice these things in your loved ones, whether it be a family member, whether it be a brother or sister, uncle, friend, fellow student, you'll know. And I think the very important factor is to pick up these things and actually ask the questions and not be nervous or scared to ask the questions that you might need help, or ask the questions to someone to say, I've been noticing that you're not checking in as much. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you want to speak to someone? And I think that's very, very vital, right? So I'm sorry, my slides just ran away with me, right? So I wanted to touch base just on fatigue and languishing, and do yourself a favor and go look up Adam Grant and listen to some of his TED Talks on languishing. I promise you, the day I read the article on languishing, I was like, wow. We don't realize that we in this space of constant, we know what we have to do. We know that we have to study this. We know that we have to continue working, but it's that sense of joylessness that we have within that space. So we're not burnt out, but we're not flourishing. So where are we? Where are we in this middle space of languishing? I promise you, you will just go listen to that letter that he wrote, or that article that he wrote, or read it. It will make such a big difference, because it puts into perspective, how am I feeling? Within this COVID space, we've all had to change the way we've worked, the way we study, the way we live our lives, the way we interact with our friends, the way we interact with our families. We've had to change that. Remember, we are not only grieving the lives that we've lost of loved ones or friends and family, we're also grieving our lives that we had before. We're grieving. Sorry. I see this today. This is actually the first time this has happened to me. So I'm so sorry.
Okay.
So it's making me a bit nervous. So I'm going to try and go through super quickly, because I know I'm wasting time. Okay, so it's the absence of well-being. And well-being is when exactly what I think somebody said in the chat box. It's managing your daily routines. It's managing how you continually, do your activities that you're used to. I know that when we first went into lockdown, everyone was like, oh my goodness, we can shower at 2 p.m. now, and we can, work in our beds, and we can do all of these things. But that wasn't good. We had to come back to a space where we follow a routine. We wake up in the morning, we shower, we get dressed, even if it's in your yoga pants, you get dressed, and then you start your day. You have breakfast, you start your day, you do your work, you have your lunch space, you compartmentalize your life. If you're a study person at night, you do that and you plan your day around that. If you're a study person during the day, you plan your day around that. And I think it's so important to keep a routine, to make sure that you keep the routine and you stick to it. You write down your routine, you make to-do lists. I'm one of those people that makes everything goes on my to-do list. Somebody asks me to send them an email, I will write it down on my to-do list. Why? Because even if you're just sending that email, you've done it. So when you've done it, you tick it off. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. It gives you that sense of, I've done 5 things in my today. So I feel accomplished. I have that space. And it also helps you, feel a little bit better about yourself. So that's also good. Do those checklists. Make those lists, create a routine. So this is just something that I wanted to share, because I think it's really nice to actually put yourself in the space and actually see, oh, where am I within the spectrum? How am I feeling? How does this work for me? And sometimes knowing which part of the spectrum you're sitting in allows you to be more aware of, I need to ask for help. I need to speak to someone, even if it's speaking to a loved one or psychologist or a counselor over the telephone, right? So there's healthy, there is responding and reacting, there's injured and struggling, and there's crisis. And we all want to be in that space of healthy. But sometimes within this COVID space, which has been a very difficult, a very hard space, very uncertain, that uncertainty has caused us to feel uncertain ourselves. We don't know where we are. We don't know how nervous we are about loved ones. We don't know how nervous we are about ourselves. So it's important to have a mental health check-in. It's important to check in with ourselves. Wake up in the morning. How am I feeling? Journaling is a brilliant way to try and actually, introspect and say, how am I feeling? Refocus, right? You can take a picture of this, because I think it's very important. I think it's something that we can all, you take a picture and you tick off and you see exactly where you are, right? And remember, in the crisis space, it's when you're really, really beyond burnt out. You're in that space where you cannot behave in a way that is of your nature. And it's very important to know that there is help available if you're in the space. There is help available if you're in the injured and struggling space, right? I'm going to go through a little bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So what to do? It's okay to not be okay, right? And it's okay to ask for help. Start conversations. How are you really doing today? You can journal this. You can use these as journal headings. And for that day, you can say, how are you really doing today? And you can be truthful and authentic about it. How are you feeling right now? Right? Share resources. If you like today, I'm going to share a few slides where you can take a picture, share it to your friends, share it to your family, share it to fellow students, share self-help tips. What do you do? I'd like to hear if everybody can maybe in the chat box just say, what do you do when you're feeling stressed? What's the one go-to you do when you're feeling stressed? Right? Put it into the chat box. I actually do a breathing technique. So I have this app and it's a 2-minute breathing technique. So when I'm super stressed, or before a presentation, or before I know a long meeting or a long day, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I do a 2-minute breathing technique. It's in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that calms me down and puts me in a nice space, right? Connect to your loved ones. We're so lucky to be in a space where we have WhatsApp, we have Zoom, we have MS Teams, we have our cell phones at the just in front of us. We can connect with anyone, and all we have to do is send a loved one a voice note in the morning. Be like, hey, how are you doing today? And that often picks up your mood as well as the person that's receiving it. So try that, right? Encourage people to get help and support if you're noticing they're not feeling well, right? Help and support, it's speak to someone. Build a support system. Get professional help, right? In this instance, employee assistance programs, if you're in a working environment, I'm not sure if anybody is doing internships and things like that, and that's why I put it there, or even within your student wellness centers, right? I know that UJ does have, where there's free counseling, there's support groups through SADAG, local hospitals and clinics, other NGOs, maybe churches, right? Lead by example. You can't pour from empty cup. And this is something that I think is very important. Self-care is so important. Putting on your own mask first, because you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're not feeling well, you can't look after another person because you're not looking after yourself, right? It's very important to continue self-care. If self-care means that you sit in your room and you read a chapter of a book that you're excited about, or you listen to a podcast. I often do things like that. I listen to podcasts, even if it's an hour long. That's something that I'm doing for myself, right? Invest in your mental health. Invest in your mental health and continue these self-care activities that will improve your mental health so that you can also help improve others, right? Encourage your I'm just going to move this. Encourage your colleagues, teams, friends to look after their mental health too, right? And learn more. I cannot stress that if you go onto the SADAG website, You will find so much. I know it's a very messy website. There's a lot on it. So scroll slowly down, and I'm sure you'll find lots of videos, lots of toolkits, maybe even articles. If you like, and if you're on Facebook and Instagram, then you can follow us on our social media handles, and you see every day we put up new information. Right? I want to share with you, and this was one of the main reasons why I love to be pulled into university talks, right? Is that Higher Health has then started, also SADAG has started a Higher Health helpline, and it is a 24-hour helpline where a counselor is there 7 days a week. It's free telephonic counseling for any mental health issue. So even if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, you don't know who to speak to, phone one of the counselors. They are there to listen. They are there to give you self-help. They're there to also listen to what you're saying, and maybe just listen, if you want someone to listen to you. We do crisis intervention. We do follow-up calls and case management, and we love to do check-in calls with students. That's one of our fortes. I am a big advocate for check-ins, right? We have nationwide referrals and resources, as I mentioned, and access to over 200 support groups, right? We give information, we give brochures, we give a myriad of information and handouts, right? You can remain anonymous, so you don't have to give your name. You don't have to give anything if you don't want to. It's strictly confidential, and I promise you the numbers ever since the start of the helpline in July has increased every month because the need is there. And you as university students who have adapted to online learning, who have adapted to not being in class anymore and can lift your hand up and ask a question, it's been hard. So please give yourself that. So, and this is my favorite part of Higher Health, which is why I love university interactions, is that Higher Health offers free psychology sessions with psychologists nationwide. So all you have to do, and this is completely free, it's a service provided by Higher Health. You phone into the helpline, you speak to the counselor, and you tell them, I want to see a psychologist, and that's fine. It's free of charge. They do virtual sessions. Some of them do face-to-face, depending obviously on the situation, but they do virtual sessions, and it's completely free of charge. And I think it's very important that the service is available. So I wanted to quickly just touch on this, actually. It's so important to know that there are so many triggers. There's so many triggers that impact your mental health. It's family relationships. And I think the young lady earlier mentioned that. It's relationships, family relationships, divorce and separation, economic stress within the family. So financial stress in this new and very difficult world. It's trauma. It's bullying, whether it be, and I know there's been huge amounts of cyberbullying now. It's not like before because we're in a different world. The death of a loved one, chronic illness, even COVID and long COVID. Some of us are experiencing COVID and some of us are experiencing long COVID, where the impact is a lot longer experienced. Performing poorly at school, or being self-critical for not meeting the expectations that you set for yourself, that your lecturers set for you, or that your family members have on you. So remember, it's very hard. And remember, you have to look after your own mental health. In order to do well, you have to do that. So it's about putting your own mask on first, right? Not feeling like you fit in. And substance abuse is a huge thing. That is a negative coping skill, and it's a negative coping mechanisms that I know a lot of young people, old people, I don't want to generalize it and say students, but it's a coping mechanism that a lot of people go towards. right? And that's something that you shouldn't. Let's try and avoid that, right? I wanted to put this in because I thought this might be very useful, right? So you can take a quick picture. I really liked it. I thought it was very nice to put in. I know it's not working from home, but I mean, I feel like actuarial science students are super posh. So I feel like you guys are on a different level of study, right? So taking regular breaks, being mindful of, even when you're having a cup of coffee, this is something that's so valuable, being mindful. You know, when you're making that cup of coffee, you're taking a break and now you're making a cup of coffee. You're actually concentrating on putting the coffee in. You're not thinking about 6 million other things. You're not thinking about how many more chapters I have to do. You're thinking about, okay, I'm doing this. I'm putting the sugar in. I'm putting the milk in. So doing it mindfully. Self-care, I mentioned. Breathe. On the SADAG website, there is videos by Dr. Ella Manga. Please, please, please try that. She is wonderful. She's from Breathworks SA. And she has breathing techniques that help you in so many different spaces. It's just wonderful. Conversations. So if you notice that you're struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help or support. Please, please, please. Family, very important. Keep connected, be active, even if it's just running on the spot early in the morning. All right. Problem solve. If you're struggling to deal with a problem, or you're struggling with a chapter, or you're struggling with a concept, break it down. I can only imagine how your concepts look, but I'm just saying, break it down, right? Meaning, engage in daily work activities that provide you with a sense of belonging and meaning. When we attach something that we're doing to a purpose, it often helps us and it often motivates us. Go back to that space. And sometimes journaling can help with that. You know, when you're looking for your purpose and you're trying to find that motivation again. And being kind to yourself. I think that's one of the things that should be the motto of today's day and age, is that being kind to yourself is very valuable. Give yourself time to not feel okay if you're not feeling okay. Give yourself time to rest when you need rest. Give yourself time to give yourself space and be okay with that. This is just something, and I mentioned my breathing technique that I do when I feel overwhelmed. I love this. I always share this picture. It's because I think I use it, so I just think everyone will use it. Sometimes what I will do is, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll put my favorite song on. And for that 3 minutes, it's just me and the song and refocus. And sometimes when you're overwhelmed, just doing that helps you to refocus and put you in a different mindset for when you want to take on that difficult email or difficult chapter. Right? This is just something I always put in. Knowledge is power. The more you know is the more you can know. And I'm sure you guys know that. Share your feelings, don't bottle them up, even if you just need to vent to someone. Right? Increase positive contact. So that's like checking in with your family members, checking in with your friends, send them a cute voice note, or send them a cute picture. It's always fun to receive them. Set small attainable goals. So don't be like me and make a list of 50 things, make a list of 10 things so that you feel like you accomplished something. Avoid making life-changing decisions when you're not in a good space. When you're not in a good space, avoid making those life-changing decisions. Take time, be kind to yourself, right? And take your time in making these decisions. Don't be so hard on yourself. Exercise and diet, please keep your eating in order. It's so important. I think I'm one of those people that forget to eat because your whole day is just busy, and you actually forget to eat. And that's not a good thing. Avoid crutches such as smoking, drinking, or taking drugs. And if you want, and I think it's so useful, support groups are so supportive by nature. And I think it's something that's very valuable. I just like this picture. You can take a picture, a snapshot of this. So did you know that if you're living with depression, there are things you can do to help yourself? This is a picture that I love sharing because it's so pretty. And it has valuable stuff in there that you can use just on your daily checklist. You can literally have this in the front of your journal and you can say, okay, I did this today. And you actually feel like this is something you can look at and manage and help you with your daily routine, right? So this is super simple. I know I've mentioned a lot of these things before, but this is just a poster that I think is nice to take a picture of. These are the SADAG social media handles that I mentioned, and we share things every day. Tomorrow we are doing a Facebook Friday Live. Before we used to do a chat, now it's a Facebook Friday Live on women's mental health. So please feel free to listen in. It's an hour long. It's at 1 o'clock, right? So that's the social media handles. And these are just a few. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. These are a few helpful resources. You can take a picture of it. Some of them are very useful, and some of them are on the SADAG website. So please take a picture. Please see. Try them. There's no harm. If you download an app and you're not happy with it, don't use it. But find one that works for you. Find one that works for you. Okay, you can take a snapshot of this also. This is the helpline. That's specially for you students. Free access, free telephonic counseling, free psychology sessions, just putting it out there with baby lights and all of that, right? I know that I spoke super fast and I'm normally the person that has lots of analogies all over, but I didn't want to take up the other person's time. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much, Vanishaa. Thank you for that insightful presentation. I don't know about you guys, but I've learned a lot and I feel powered to take charge of my own mental health. I've noticed that there's actually quite a lot of things that we can do by ourselves to help ourselves. Thank you so much, Vanishaa, for that. You had a question from Pato Chedzo.
Yes.
Yes, he was asking, or she was asking, what kind of stress were you experiencing when you were disconnected?
So I think this was actually the first time that's actually happened to me. Where like while I was talking, the thing cut off, and I'm like, but I don't see the pictures. So that was actually quite stressful. But then you have to be. I think you have to come to a point where these things do happen, and as much as you don't want these things to happen, connectivity is our new normal problem. And I think that's something that I was just like, oh my God, people are waiting for me. So I just messaged Sharon and I'm like, I think I'm not doing okay. I changed my connection. I said, okay, I can do this. And then I came back. And I think it's because I like to talk to university students. I just get super pumped whenever I get super excited. So I don't want to leave without sharing my information. So I will not be there. I will always be there.
Lastly, there's a comment from Lusanda Bai. I think he was responding to your question. He said, all I know is that it's not as easy as people say it is to realize that you need help. You can see you are drowning, but instead you shut people up. For me, it took a patient friend to notice that I actually needed help. But even now, when I have relapsed, it does click that I need to speak to someone. The problem is people say it like it's a walk in the park. You just contact us and all your problems go away. But the truth is, it scares the hell out of you just thinking about the fact that you have to talk about things because the person doesn't live in your head. For them to help you, they need to know what the actual problem is. It does not end there. Sometimes the person you're talking to, the person you are talking misunderstands you and you come out of the session feeling worse.
Oh my word. I'm sending you a big hug. So, right, it is definitely not easy. It's not easy to ask for help. It's not easy to receive help. It's not easy to be in that space where it's a difficult space and there's so many things coming at you and you're experiencing all of this. And you're very right, is that another person can't be in your head. They can't experience what you're experiencing. But what they can do is, if you come from, and I like the fact that you said that when another person noticed that you're not feeling well, and that's a valuable thing, because when somebody else notices it and then you're like, I'm not doing well and I have to do something about this. It's about trying different ways. We're so unique. Each of us are so different. And each of us will be helped by different things. I may be a person that does breathing techniques. Another person might say, they're stressed and exercise is their way to go. Another person will say they want to take a walk outside or be in the sun, and that de-stresses them. And the same with when you mentioned feeling worse after a session is over. Remember that even the relationship between a psychologist and a patient, it's a very valuable relationship, but also you need to click. You need to understand each other. And because we're so different people, maybe you need to try a different psychologist or a different therapist. And that might be something that and it's okay. It's actually okay to do that, because the same way when we go into class, we don't click with everyone within our class. We'll click with certain people. We'll be best friends with someone else and we'll be acquaintance, or just, walk by, hi friends, to somebody else. So it just depends on that. But please don't lose, I want to say the word and I lost it, but please don't lose that want to ask for help and get help, because there's so much help available. As much as I know SADAG is busy, we want to help every single person that comes to us. And I think that's where all our passion comes from. That's why we can deal with so many calls and so many different projects and trying to just get the word out there. So please continually try and reach out for help. See who you speak to, and maybe speak to one of your loved ones. Maybe they can give you just like that little bit of insight, like, okay, this is not working, but let's try this. And sometimes within that space, it might work. Remember, it's always work to get better. It's not going to be just, and I by no means mean that it's just going to be like that. It won't. It takes time. It takes effort and it takes time. I hope that helps.
One last question from Njabulo Madawu, who's asking, what does it take to get over a burnout? Is it just the self-care practices or talking about? Say you take a rest, but while even doing that, you can still feel it that you're exhausted. And when does that feeling end? I think I also experience the same thing sometimes, whereby I just feel tired, and even just taking a pen feels way too heavy for my arm.
It's because you've reached that burnout space. And that's when you need to actually speak to a psychologist, speak to a counselor, because you're going to need that different space. You're going to need that different type of help or different type of coping skills, that more intensive. You might need to take a break a bit. You might need to take a longer space where you're actually refocusing on yourself and, rejuvenating, if that's the right word to use. But speak to a professional. That if you're in that space where you're absolutely, like you say, can't even pick up a pen, please speak to a professional, because you don't want to reach that space where it's beyond burnout. They say, so there was this one talk that was done, and I'll share it with Sharon. I'll find it and I'll share it, is that there was this one, I think it was a talk or it was an article quite a few years back, where they say actually completely rejuvenate is 4 days. No, I'm wrong now. It's 4 nights and 5 days rest. And that's the only, like, that's the time frame. 4 days and 5 days and 4 nights. I'm sorry. 5 days and 4 nights. And that's when you can reset almost. So it's not just the weekend, it's taking that extra time out, but also when you're taking that time out to not stress about work, to not stress about family, to not stress about, things. It's to actually come together, actually do some self-care, actually take a book and read it. Listen to a few podcasts. I promise you, these podcasts help me so much. And I do a lot of work. As you can see, I'm on a webinar till this time. So try that. But I'll find the articles and I'll definitely share them. Oh, there's another question. I think I'm taking up the other speaker's time. But is it fine?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is
Must
it
I just answer
for
it?
us? Keep chat, please. Otherwise, we can take answers at the end for those that really need help. And
Okay.
I can't restrict them from asking
I
questions.
know, and I love the questions. It makes me so excited. I won't lie. Okay, so how effective is hypnosis to heal stress or depression? Some level of stress needs a shut brain. Would you recommend it? So I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not even a doctor, right? I've studied psychology, but I'm not there yet. But I would like to say that every person is different and every type of therapy is different. I am not completely sure about hypnosis. It's not something that I would recommend because I don't have enough information. So I feel like if you do have enough information, if you speak to people about it and you gain that knowledge and you feel like it's a way for you, then that is a choice. But I would advocate for speaking to a counselor, speaking to a psychologist, learning positive coping skills and coping mechanisms to help you get through what you're feeling is often the best way. Because like when you're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious, what is something that is your go-to? Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's the breathing technique. I know what I need to do to feel better. In your mind, it might be exercise. I need to go take a walk outside, or I need to take a run outside, and I know I'm going to feel better. So it's about that. It's about putting in a coping skill that's positive instead of feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed and saying, you know what, I need to get a drink. Do you see? So it's learning the positive coping skill and actually using it to help you better manage. So I'm not sure about hypnosis. I'm so sorry. That's not something I think I can answer, and I wouldn't feel comfortable answering it. But find out, everybody is different.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna run away. Okay, I'm gonna mute now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful. I will now introduce our last speaker. Her name is Nthabeleng Zozo. I've already introduced her. She is a mental health activist and a founder of the Prominent Culture. It's an initiative aimed at educating people about mental health and illness. Nthabeleng, over to you. You are muted.
Okay. Hi guys, I hope you're all good, and please forgive me for being late, number one. And secondly, my PC gave me problems, so yeah, that's why there's this delay, I think. Can I share my slides now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the mental health stigma and how we should end the mental health stigma. Okay, so the reason why I decided to become a mental health activist is because I wanted to educate people about mental health, more especially in Black communities, because not Black communities and such, but yeah, Black townships, because it's something that it's not taken into like consideration, and people don't normally talk about it. And I think most elderly people think it's being crazy. It has to do with like, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, just being crazy. So also I wanted to show people that mental health is important as much as physical health is, because just because you can't see someone is suffering from mental health, and because some people like they can put up a face, you just see someone being happy, but you don't see or realize that they're going through something. So mental health is important, and yeah, as much as physical health is. I also wanted to break the stigma and the myth around mental health illness. Mental health affects children from the age of 14, because I know most of the time when you're like suffering from this, they'll be like, yo, you're still young, you shouldn't be suffering from this thing and whatnot. So yeah, people from the age of 14, and like they're not being dramatic, it's just a normal thing. And then mental illness is not just depression, because I feel like most of the time when we talk about mental health, people think, oh, depression, stress. Like there are a lot of more mental disorders, around 300 mental disorders. So it's a lot. What is mental health? Mental health has to do with your psychological, social, and emotional well-being. So it helps you determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. So people tend to like confuse mental health with mental illness. They're so different, guys, because mental health affects your social, emotional, and psychological well-being. Okay, Matt Haig, I love to share this quote with you. He says that mental health affects everyone with a mind. There's no us and them, only us. Let's end the stigma and end the shame. So I feel like if you're a living being, you're interacting with everything around you, the world, people, just the environment you're in, and that on its own like affects you. Maybe you can't see because yeah, you can't see it because it's not physical, but just interacting with people, living on its own, it can cause you mental illnesses sometimes. And yeah, everything that goes in has to come out. So most of the time people don't realize that, but everyone has or maybe deals with mental health. What causes the stigma? So stigma is caused by lack of understanding. People are not educated about mental health, the perception, and the type of consequences of the mental illnesses. So yeah, most people talk like say mental health is for like crazy people and whatnot, but it's not. That's why there's a stigma around that when you have this thing, you're crazy or not, but it's not. That's not the truth. You see, okay, there are two types of stigmas: self-stigma and public stigma. Public stigma involves the negative or discriminatory attitudes and others have about mental illnesses. And then self-stigma is you personally, and it refers to the negative attitudes, including internalized shame, and that the people with mental health have about their own condition. How do we end the stigma? So we need, guys, to educate people about mental health, especially in schools, at your home, educate your parents. Like just tell them about mental health, that it's real, so that they don't take out their stress on other things, like, or whatever they're going through on other things that may harm them sometimes, like alcohol, substance abuse, or maybe abusing people around them. So we need to educate people. And then you can join mental health groups, support people who open up to you about their mental health issues. So if someone comes to you and they tell you that they have a problem and they're suffering from mental health, you need to like support them, listen to them. If you don't know what to say to them or how to help them, you can direct them to people who know or professionals. I think there are few places where you can get help. And then encourage equality between mental illness and physical illness. So we need to educate people that as much as physical health is a real thing, mental health also is, and that they should take it seriously. And if like they are affected, they should get help. And then we shouldn't share like stories that are not in existence. We should help people and tell them about real life examples. Maybe what you've been through or what someone else has been through without having to name like or say who the person is. Okay, so why most students suffer from mental health? I thought I should add that because most people here are students. The factors at play including academic pressure, financial stress, and uncertainty about which major career route students pursue. More social media abuse. I feel like as youth, we are into social media, and reduced stigma associated with getting help. And then most of the time we are lonely, so you should create your own family away from home and make use of school resources like PsychEd. I don't know like what other universities have, like that's the support groups or places where they can get help. But yeah, since we're at school, guys, like we're away from our families, so I think we should like make friends around, try to socialize. Even though you don't talk to them, there are apps that like you can use to share how you feel. I'll go to them now. And yeah, just don't be lonely because it really gets lonely here. Okay, these are the apps, the mental health supportive apps. There's Track Your Mood, Breathe to help others distress, Tell Your Emotions. You guys can take pictures of these and then you can search the apps. Also, like these apps, they help you because you get to talk to someone who you don't know. So in that case, you won't feel like ashamed, and you won't feel ashamed or feel like the person is gonna judge you or anything. Okay. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Prominent Culture. I also have my own website where like I share mental health issues. Like I just choose a topic and then write about it so that people can know. Like for example, I have abandonment issues, abusive relationships, ADHD, adoption. Like there's a lot. So you can go on my Instagram account and check my bio so that you can visit my website and educate yourself more. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Nthabeleng. Thank you so much. I must applaud you for starting a very powerful and very much needed initiative. I have no doubt that through initiatives like yours, we'll be able to fit the stigma attached to mental health. Do you guys have any questions for Nthabeleng and or Vanishaa? Please feel free to unmute your mic. Okay, Tulani Nkambule had asked, how do we support and be there for friends who have mental health disorders, e.g. depression or anxiety? Nthabeleng, you can respond to that, or Vanishaa.
Should I take it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. How do you support your friends who are suffering from depression? That's the question. And other mental health disorders.
Yes.
Is that okay? So I think you should try to listen to your friends more. Like when they talk, don't try to like intervene, and don't convince them that you can get rid of stress or anything. Like, stress is there and we are meant to like go through it. So be there for them as they're going through whatever whatever they are going through, and support them. Like, if you don't know what to say to them or what to do, you can direct them to people who know, like professionals.
Sihle Mlonyeni said, I normally pray when I'm stressed. It calms me down. Recently started doing breathing exercises too. That might help someone else here. I think I'll be the last one to ask a question, and it goes to Nthabeleng. The beginning of this session, we asked people to share what mental health means to them. What does mental health mean to you?
What does mental health mean to me? Okay, I think it's what can I say? Okay, being conscious, like, yeah, just being conscious, being at the right state of mind, and being able to balance your psychological well-being, your social well-being, and emotional well-being. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Nthabeleng. It's actually a great one. Any other question, guys? Going once, going twice. You can unmute yourself.
I think there's one more question from Nthabeleng. No, that they are struggling, especially given that we don't have a close relationship with our families. I don't know. I think maybe if they can maybe unmute and maybe share.
Oh, sorry, Vanishaa, was just a typo. I wanted to ask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, how to one go about like the parents that they're struggling. I don't think many of us do have that kind of relationship with our families or friends that, hey, I am struggling with 1, 2, 3. And most of them, I don't think they will understand it when I can explain to them. How you think we can go about addressing that? Okay, thank you.
So essentially, I'm sorry, I think for me, the sound was a bit of a struggle, my own signal. My signal's been fighting with me. But are you saying, like, how do you speak to parents to say that, like, if you're noticing they're struggling with mental health issues?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a very valuable question. And I think Nthabeleng mentioned the difficulty within the stigma associated within society to say that, you know, what is mental health? There's no Zulu word, and this is something that one of our late board members, Dr. Jan Chabalala, also mentioned, and he did a lovely talk. I miss him so dearly, is that he did a lovely talk to say that, you know, there is no word such as depression. There is no Zulu word for depression. And that becomes so hard because people can't associate when there's no word. So when there's no word, how do you say that this is a feeling? This is a diagnosis, this is a problem. And I think that it becomes very difficult for us as children to explain to our parents. So it's not only within the Black society, but also within, I'm Indian, so the Indian society, it's hard because they don't take it. They say, oh, you must be strong. You must be strong and pull up your socks and you must continue. But it's not that. Everyone struggles very differently. Everyone's resilience is very different. Every person is unique. And I think the best way to try and somehow not explain, not try and teach a parent, because often if they're already a little bit concerned about what you're saying to them and don't want to be taught something, it's often just explaining to them in the best way they understand, right? It's like, are you stressed? Like, I've noticed that, you know, you're not doing too well. You haven't been looking after your hygiene. Or I haven't been looking after my hygiene and I'm not doing too well. I'm feeling uneasy. The same way, and Nthabeleng mentioned this, physical health versus mental health. is that the same way, if we were dizzy, if you were dizzy and
Are we losing her? Is it my network?
No, it's hers.
oh, is it mine?
You are back
Goodness
though.
me. I'm going to just put my video off just in case, right? So if you're feeling unwell, right, you know that you need to go to a doctor, and if they diagnose you with diabetes, you would then take the medication, you would take the treatment, you would take the insulin. That's the same with mental health. If you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you can't manage your daily routines, you're not doing well. You have to go to the doctor and you have to find out what helps you. And that's a simple way of trying to explain to parents or trying to explain to the older generation that it's the same thing. If we can't keep our minds healthy, then how will we keep our bodies healthy? I don't know. I hope that answers you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. We've reached the end of our session. We went a little bit ahead of time, but it was very much necessary. I'm muted.
No.
Luane, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you, Sharon.
I think you missed, Sisha's question when you read it. She said, I normally pray when I'm stressed. It calms me down. Recently, I started doing breathing exercises too. And then she continued to ask, what is the name of the app that you use? I think she was asking Vanishaa.
Oh, so I use an app called Let's Meditate. I use an app that's called Let's Meditate. There's a lot of different meditation techniques on it. You can choose whichever one, but there's a 2-minute breathing and relax one, which is like a shortcut on my phone.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you, guys. We've reached the end of our session. Special thanks to our guests, Vanishaa and Nthabeleng. Thank you so much. And to our students, I hope you are bold enough to take charge of your own mental health, to reach out or find ways that work for you. And I hope that will also help in increasing the chances of you being okay. Njabulo, I'm sorry, Njabulo raised his hand.
Sure. Before you close off, I just taken the question from Terry that needs to be answered from the chat. I'm sure you saw it.
Give me a second. Oh, okay. Thank you, Njabulo. Tebe is asking, how can we help someone who is struggling with mental health issue, but not willing to seek help?
That's a very, very good question. That's one of the main questions that we should ask, right? It's a very good question. The best way, and it's better to ask than to not ask, to be honest. It's better to ask than to not ask. But also it's good if it comes from a place of concern, a place of non-judgment, a place where you're showing your concern because you're noticing that the loved one is, not doing well. They're not coping. They're not managing. And you're like, you can approach them and say, hi, I know that I've noticed. So this is a good one. I've noticed that you haven't been sleeping well. You haven't been looking after yourself. You haven't been checking in as much. Is something the matter? Do you want to speak to me about something? Do you want to speak to someone else? Do you want me to make a call for you and then you can take the phone and speak to the counselor on the telephone? Do you want the numbers of someone to contact? Often, and this is something, that's why I share SMS number also. It's that sometimes to actually dial that 0800 number and speak to someone is often hard. But if you SMS us, the counselor calls you back, and sometimes that's easier because you feel like they are reaching out to you. And sometimes it's easier to have that conversation then. So it's very important that you come from a place of concern, a place of care, and a place of non-judgment when you're speaking to someone and you're concerned about them.
Lubone,
Yes,
can I add? Okay. Someone asked me a question, but they're not part of this now, like because of the network. So I just thought I should share it with everyone. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like with society, ne? This thing of saying boys cannot go through things, like, or they're not allowed, or maybe when you're going through something, they'll be like, no, you're a boy, you can't go through that, or you need to be like, you need to act strong. Such things, like, how do you get boys to talk about how they feel? I think Vanishaa can answer.
Okay, sorry, I was like, is there a question to me? So I think that's also very valuable because, like, I mean, in addition to having stigma with mental health, is the stigma that boys don't cry or boys shouldn't cry. And that's also the reason why I mentioned in the presentation where it's men are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than females, but that's not because they're more experiencing depression or mental health. It's because men or boys more often seek help very late. Ladies like to talk. You're feeling stressed, what do? You vent to your friend or send them a voice note, right? That's ladies, right? That's ladies. We talk, we share our emotions. Men, on the other hand, boys, on the other hand, are actually almost, and I want to say the word trained, but I don't mean it in that manner, but are almost, told that you're supposed to be the strong one. You're supposed to be the manly person. You're supposed to be the one that doesn't get impacted. But remember, we're all human beings. The same way we're all impacted by physical health, like how you mentioned, like physical issues and physical illness, is the same way we're all prone as human beings to mental health issues. So if a person is feeling stressed, whether he be girl or boy, whether it be a girl or boy, it still needs the same help. If you were experiencing, like I mentioned, symptoms of diabetes, whether you're a girl or boy, you're still going to go to the doctor. So it's the same concept. And I think that's where these conversations need to happen. It needs to be okay for them to ask for help. It needs to be okay for them to say, I want to talk about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling emotional. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need help to deal with this. And I think it's very valuable when men speak out about mental health because they're sharing it to other boys and other men to say that it's okay. So that's one of the most valuable things. And I think, as much as I speak, and I know I speak a lot, but it's when a person speaks out of lived experience, that really hits home. It's like, I'm also one of these people. I also experience stress. I also experience feeling overwhelmed. I myself at times have anxious feelings. There's certain coping mechanisms that I use. We're in very difficult times, and it's okay to feel those things, but it's also okay to know how to manage them and where and when to seek help and how to seek help. I hope that answers it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. I hope now I'm allowed to close. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Nthabeleng. Thank you, Vanishaa, for joining us and sharing your expertise. It is highly appreciated. I believe that our students are full enough to take care of themselves. They know where to reach out if they need help. Yeah, I truly believe that from today, things will be better and they'll also be able to manage their life better so that they can also pass, because at the end of the day, we want them to pass. That's what they're here for, to get their degree. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.